Good morning, everyone. To everyone here with us today and on our webinar, thank you for joining us. My name is Greg Olahan. I'm with ICLR at our offices at the University of Western Ontario. It's good to be back in this office, my old stomping grounds. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce to you Takaaki Kusakabe. He's visiting us from Japan this morning. Mr. Kusakabe is the research coordinator for earthquake disaster prevention at the Research Center for Disaster Management at Japan's National Institute for Land and Infrastructure Management, which is within the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport, and Tourism. We had the pleasure of having Mr. Kusakabe at Western yesterday, 20 years ago. Yes. He spent 1 year there as at the Boundary Layer Wind Tunnel as a visiting researcher. So the old gang there was happy to welcome him back and talk about your growing families and everything like that. So we welcome him this morning. Thank you for coming.
So can I begin now?
Please.
Good morning and nice to meet you. Thank you very much for introducing me. And I'd like to express my appreciation to Dr. Kovacs and ICLR and the audience today coming here and for making such good opportunity. As I introduced, my name is Kusakabe from NIRIM, and this is a title of today's my presentation. And this is content of my presentation. Introduction of NIRIM shortly, outline of the Great East Japan Earthquake Disaster, activities by the government, activities by the EMRIT, government policies on countermeasures for earthquake and tsunami based on the lessons and learned, activities of EMRIT, and what research is I'm doing, I'm challenging, and concluding remarks is today's content. And at the first, I'd like to introduce NIRIM and myself in short. It will be a reference for you to understand my presentation today. NIRIM is an organization of EMRIT, Government of Japan. The research is conducted on housing and public infrastructure such as flood control facilities, highway, sewage. And the number of researchers are almost 250. And so many functions. And I have a brochure of my organization. So if you would like to know about us, please take one later. And with regard to disaster, we have many research and supporting activities, not only usually, but also immediately after disasters. At the Great East Japan earthquake, 84 people were dispatched during 1 month immediately after the disaster. And usually we are studying about preparedness and countermeasures to such earthquake. And this shows the organization of Research Center for Disaster Risk Management I'm belonging. Director and I'm a research coordinator for earthquake disaster prevention. Under them, there are Erosion and Sediment Control Division, Flood Disaster Prevention Division, and Earthquake Disaster Prevention Division. And this center supporting policy making and discussion of government, develops new technologies and methods, and enforce crisis management. This is our function. And this is about me. As Greg introduced, I was visiting researcher of Boundary Layer Wind Tunnel, UWO. Sorry. And sometimes I'm a researcher in NIRIM. Sometimes I'm actually managing highway construction, maintenance, and disaster control on highway. And today, I come here to learn from ICLR about disaster management. Because now I'm tackling to develop methods that contribute to save life and maintain life support system under historical huge rare disaster. I'd like to begin the topic on outline of the Great East Japan earthquake disaster. So this is characteristics of the Great East Japan earthquake. This is a plate boundary type earthquake, and a large fault zone, almost 500 kilometer and 200 kilometer width. Magnitude was 9.0, depth 24 kilometer. And most of the characteristic thing is so huge giant tsunami occurred by this earthquake. Okay. And this shows tsunami height. Destructive damage by huge tsunami occurred by this earthquake, as you know. This figure shows irradiation height and run-up height. So here written is 40-meter height. Run-up height is 40-meter height. Unbelievably high. And also, wide coastal movement and ground settlement were observed. Cluster movement max 530 centimeter in horizontal to the Pacific, and 1.2 meter in vertical settlement. Area below sea level increases from 3 square kilometer to 16 square kilometer. This is summary of damages. There are deaths and missing and or completely destroyed buildings as colored orange. You can easily understand that many prefectures were seriously damaged by the disaster. More than 15,000 people are killed, and still 2,700 people are missing. This compares loss between the Great East Japan earthquake and the Great Hanshin Awaji earthquake in 1995. So almost double, damage is almost double. I believe the most of the people coming here knows. I believe that most of the people coming here have watched the video of disaster. So I don't show many video, but this is the video taken by Emirates CCTV on the road. So tsunami suddenly comes like this.
Just driving down the road and then. They have no idea.
You're in a boat?
Okay. Stopped. And this is the comparison before the tsunami and after tsunami. So completely washed away, as you can easily find. And this is Rikuzen-Takata city. And this shows how high tsunami was in Rikuzen-Takata city. This is the elevation of tsunami. So even if you evacuate here, you cannot avoid tsunami. This is apartment house. So 5th floor is okay, but 4th floor not anymore. And tsunami has been occurred fires in all disasters. This time also, fires were occurred by tsunami in many cities. This building is Kadoaki. This building is Kadoaki Elementary School in Ishinomaki City. 3,800 people are killed or missing in this city. Behind this school is a low hill. There is low hill. children in the school evacuated to the hill by the experience of evacuation drill and survived. However, many people living around this school were killed, unfortunately. So from this slide, I'd like to shortly explain what was the damage by the infrastructure damage by the tsunami and the earthquake. Bridges are damaged by tsunami and strong shake. This is the first time in Japan modern bridges are washed away by tsunami. We had finished 3 years seismic retrofit program of bridge against shaking before the earthquake. This program prevented bridge falling down well. However, we have not yet prepared countermeasures against the tsunami. And port facilities are damaged by liquefaction, strong shaking, and tsunami. Coastal levees were damaged by shaking, liquefaction, and tsunami. And these facilities are quite important to protect the town from tsunami. To improve the design of levee is a major issue of MRIT now. MRIT is Ministry of Land Infrastructure Transport Tourism. And this time, slopes are also failed by shaking, the same as earthquakes ever caused. Buildings are also damaged by shaking, fire, and tsunami. Before this earthquake, it is considered that RC buildings are not easily damaged by tsunami. In many buildings, main structures were not damaged by the tsunami. However, many buildings were moved and overturned by such huge tsunami. Doors and windows were destroyed by tsunami, even structures are not damaged. Non-structural members, this is not damaged by tsunami, by shaking. Non-structural members were damaged, even structures are not damaged. Actually, in Tokyo, some people are killed by such falling of ceiling by this earthquake. We should not forget the damage of Fukushima nuclear power plant. This accident becomes the main issue of the disaster, while other problems by the earthquake and the tsunami were also quite serious, ongoing problems. And another problem I have to refer here is the tsunami debris. 1.5 million tons debris is coming from Japan to coastal of, as you know, North America, including Canada. Debris consists of houses, cars, ships, so very big debris. Things are contained in debris. So the third, I'd like to go to third topic. I'd like to introduce what were activities by the government immediately after the earthquake. Response of government was improved after the Takaaki earthquake in 1995. At that time, it takes 4 hours until emergency headquarters was established. This time, 2:50 p.m., disaster management office was established, and 3:14 emergency headquarters for response to disaster is established. And Prime Minister directed immediately, and government service team go to damaged area in the day and the next day. The most important activity immediately after the earthquake was the rescue operation. Huge amount of human resource, machinery, and equipment were dispatched from police, firefighting team, Japan Coastal Guard, and Japan Self-Defense Force. 27,000 people were rescued by their operation. They supported to provide major relief goods such as food, medical supplies, fuel, etc. And also, they provide bus taking service by defense force. It is quite mentally important for damaged people. And also, medical staff is sent to the is also enough rescue operation. A doctor, nurse, a pharmacist, dentist, physical therapist, support team, and medical health. Dentist is quite important, has important role for out spy. And I'd like to express appreciation to Canada for supporting relief supplies and many supports summarized like this. So each ministry and authorities played each role. Immediately after the earthquake, Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare also took their roles. And this is about national policy. At 3:13 p.m., marching orders to inter-prefectural emergency rescue unit. And other activities remarkable of police is acceleration of outspy and cooling of atomic power plant by high pressure water truck. And Japan Coastal Guard, usually they are rescuing people on the sea, but this time in land they escaped. And also quick response. Japan self-defense operation in order to implement large-scale disaster relief mission is PM6. Plenty of operations have done under this order. Of course, before this time, as they begin their own activities. This is also important mission of Coastal Guard, keeping sea by removing tsunami debris. I'd like to keep this. And I come from Emirate, so I'd like to introduce activities by the Emirate immediately after the earthquake, especially by Tohoku Regional Bureau. And this part contains some slides included in presentation done by Mr. Iwasaki, Vice Director General of Tohoku Regional Bureau in Emirate. And Emirate established emergency headquarters very immediately after the earthquake at 3:15. And the first meeting was held from 3:45 March 11. 49 meetings have been held since. Information is shared with Regional Development Bureau nationwide by TV conference system. Prompt information sharing, quick decision making, and implementation could be achieved by this. Helicopter Michinoku, owned by Tohoku Regional Bureau, took off from Sendai Airport very early. This is quite important for following operation of the Emirate. If it takes longer time to take off, it was not possible to take off anymore because the Sendai Airport was also attacked by tsunami at 4 p.m. already. So this is 3:23 p.m. Took off. And this is a video from helicopter Michinoku. So in Sendai City, there are traffic jams, maybe for evacuation. And Shinkansen rail train stopped. And the tsunami is now rising along the river. And so tsunami attacking land.
With the insurers that support ICLR in the room, we would love a helicopter. We'll make great videos.
Yeah, right.
Go to Calgary this week.
Wow. I'll be your commentator.
Maybe an ultralight.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Usually we staff of Emirates ride with riding helicopter, but this time don't wait and the helicopter take off as soon as possible. So we can get such video. We could, and this is Sendai Airport.
Excuse me. Just as this video is on, how many people live in Sendai?
In Sendai City,
Like a big
maybe 2 million people living in Sendai.
How far inland is it from the ocean?
And this is a nuclear power plant before accident, but the facilities are already damaged by tsunami. Sorry, I missed your second question.
Is Sendai right on the ocean, or is it inland a little bit? Is it on the ocean, the city?
Yeah, near to ocean city. To this damaged area is the most important for rescue operation. To reach damaged area, we cannot use a road completely. So to reach damaged area is very important. Emirates conducted road clearing named Operation COM quickly. As a first step, North-South inland route were ensured in 1 day. The second step is clearing route that go to coastal cities and towns. 11 routes are cleared on March 12. 15 routes are cleared until March 15. The third step is clearing of coastal road, and 97% cleared until March 18, and the mission was completed. So this is a picture of clearing under the Operation COM. So quite plenty of tsunami debris we are removing. It was quite active operation because there were sometimes victims of tsunami in the debris. It's not simple debris. This is another picture of clearing. So cooperation with self-defense is quite, self-defense and other organization is quite important in this operation, not done by only Emirates. And bridge also. Bridge washed away were also built by temporary bridges. Now all the piers are going to remove it to keep capacity against the flood. So this summarizes clearing and reopening land, sea, and air route. As I told already, land route is like this, and sea route also. By March 23, all temports on the Pacific coast were back in operation to accommodate receiving emergency goods. This is right after a tsunami. Air routes. On March 16, it becomes possible for emergency airplanes of self-defense force to use Sendai Airport. Drain pump vehicles were intensively mobilized for restoration. I'd like to introduce other significant operations done by the Emirates. One is the support of disaster recovery equipment to local municipalities. To ensure measures of communication was very difficult at the damaged municipalities. They have no tools for communication, actually. So we provide such satellite telephone to each cities and towns and listen their demand request. And also, to assist local government properly and immediately, EMRIT sent liaison personnel. Liaison personnel are introduce conditions and problems and requests to the headquarters of EMRIT. They also assist coordination with other organizations. So many people sent to each town and city. We, EMRIT, have a tech force. Tech force is a specialist group of the that provides technical assistance for first rehabilitation in the affected areas at the time of large-scale natural disasters. The tech force consists of EMRIT staff. Now I'm also a member of this tech force. 62 staff were dispatched on the day of the disaster. 397 staff the next day, and there were more than 500 staff by 3 days later. This picture is activity of tech force. Pacific coastal region were widely inundated due to tsunami. In areas where natural drain was difficult because of settled down and very flat area. Drainage pump vehicle of EMRIT gathered nationwide were utilized to conduct intensive drainage operation. 3,945 vehicle day all vehicle operated in 10 cities and 6 towns. So this is the opinion presented by Tohoku Regional Bureau. As a conclusion of this part, I'd like to introduce their opinion without modification, respecting their outstanding effort, unified organization and mission, resiliency of the disaster management organization itself, cooperation between related organizations, nationwide organizations, and collaboration with private construction industry is also quite important. 52 support teams formed overnight for Operation Cove from private companies. The next topic is government policy. About government policy. What is the policies of government of Japan on countermeasures for earthquake and based on lessons learned from the earthquake? Government summarized characteristics and verification of the damage as written here. Devastating human and material damage caused by the mega earthquake and tsunami. Unforeseeable magnitude 9.0 earthquake, that was. Pre-disaster assumptions were far removed from the actual hazard. Disaster management measures excessively dependent on coastal protection facilities. So, rebuild disaster management measures in its entirety accordingly to the two reflections and the lessons learned. So, far from assumption. This is a comparison between pre-assumption, this one, and what actually happened. As the report says, it is apparent pre-assumption was far removed from actually what happened. Flooded area 270 square kilometer, but it was double. And very wide area, strong shade. And we had too much dependent on coastal protection facilities. However, actually, it couldn't protect land behind the sea behind the levee. It's a real. And this shows problems on tsunami warning. The first alert was just 3 meters in Iwate Prefecture 3 minutes after the earthquake. Data of real-time observation was announced 30 minutes after the earthquake. This is problem. There is observation, and it was 0.2 meter. People consider this time again tsunami is not so big by this information. At 15, at 3:10, real-time observation shows rapid increase like this of tidal level at Kamaishi. Alert tsunami height was raised to 6 meters at 3:40 p.m. in Iwate Prefecture. And again, it becomes over than 10 meters. People first time noticed it's quite serious problem attacking themselves. Some people are aware by that. And what are principles on selecting earthquakes and tsunami for development of disaster management measures? Examine the largest possible mega earthquakes and tsunami from every possible angle is what we have to do after that earthquake. Select earthquakes and tsunami for hazard assumption based on scientific knowledge. Enhance research on seismology, geology, archaeology, and history in comprehensive manner. So why are we Japanese are so serious? We have understood that there is a sword of Damocles on Japan. Sword of Damocles on Japan. Japan has big trials that we cannot avoid. There, Nankai trough earthquake, big Tokyo earthquake, and Mount Fuji eruption. There are many subduction zones, source areas, and activity faults in Japan. Activity fault is all around in Japan, as you can see. This is the history of Nankai trough earthquake. In 1707 and in 1854 and 1946 is the last one. So time span is 147 years, 90 years, and already 68 years has passed. And the shortest span never is 82 years, actually. So how long time we Japanese have until next earthquake? It's quite a big problem. And in history, and this is another element I have to be serious. Big eruption and earthquake concentrate in short time during Jogan area. Mount Fuji eruption 864, earthquake at Hyogo 868, 869 huge earthquake and tsunami at Tohoku. It is called, this time tsunami was once in 1,000 years. And before 1,000 years, almost same size tsunami happened in 869. And very quite big disaster happened in concentrated in short time, as you can see. In 887, Nankai trough earthquake occurred like this. And also, in Hoei era, 77, Nankai earthquake happened, and in the same year, Hosei eruption of Mount Fuji, biggest eruption of Mount Fuji occurred. We will conduct, so by that, we will consider two levels of tsunami. One is the largest possible tsunami with extremely low possibility of occurrence. Press protection of people, lives and as the first priority. Countermeasures should be comprehensive, embracing every possible instrument The other level is, placing evacuation of residents at the core don't too much depend on hardware. The other level is tsunami that occur frequently but cause major damage. Actually, government of Japan has calculated the largest possible tsunami for Nankai trough earthquake. So, red-color coastal area is now longer than before. And please be careful. Same color, red, means different range. Before, red color means just more than 5 meters. But now, red color means tsunami height is 10 to 20 meters. Very big value. And also, there are the area more than 20 meters in new assumption. So what is the direction of countermeasures to mitigate the tsunami damage? A basic principle is written here. For the largest possible tsunami, structural measures and non-structural measures should be implemented. The fundamental step in protecting human life from tsunami is evacuating to higher ground without hesitation. Aim to enable evacuation within around 5 minutes. This is the example how to consider countermeasure to the largest possible tsunami. Now, EMRIT has much clearer design concept of levy against tsunami. Against the relatively frequent tsunami, we aim to ensure protection of human lives by levy. However, against maximum level tsunami, we aim to prevent as much human damage as possible by integrated prevention, combining structural and non-structural measures. EMRIT is developing design method of levy now. And the levy will not be easily broken when the tsunami height exceeds the design level. Not broken. This time broken. This is a concept of zoning under the Act for Tsunami-Resilient City established December 2011. There, regulation of land use in red zone and orange zone. In the yellow zone, effective non-structural measures should be prepared. EMRIT is the ministry mainly responsible to this law. There are direction of countermeasures for efficient evacuation. We have prepared a system and rules for efficient evacuation, and issues are written here. Tsunami warning, information delivery system, earthquake and tsunami observation system, destination of tsunami evacuation buildings, and for development of rules of conduct for guiding residents for evacuation. So, EMRIT develops evacuation routes along national highway. Evacuation drill like this. This is evacuation to high location along the coastal road. And evacuation drill with residents near the site are also conducted by EMRIT. So there's one thing. Does everyone evacuate to higher ground without hesitation as the government aimed? Unfortunately, the answer was no, at least before the earthquake. It has been pointed out as a big problem that so many people do not evacuate by tsunami alert by normalcy bias and experience of many alerts without serious tsunami. Actually, at 3.11 earthquakes, many people do not consider tsunami will come. Like this. According to research of Professor Yoshi, 57% of people did not consider tsunami will be coming soon. But please consider, this is the answer of survived people. How's the percentage killed by tsunami? Okay, and this is the hint to improve evacuation by changing manner of broadcasting. First, the announce by town staff was polite. Tsunami alert, please evacuate to higher place. ただいま津波警報が発せられています。高いところに避難してください。I'm talking in Japanese like this. But suddenly he changed. Escape now, escape to higher place. 逃げろ、直ちに逃げろ。Shouting. So this announcement remains the memory of many people, and some people realized very bad tsunami was almost attacking them like that. So such method also we have to change and consider. There are two more directions of countermeasures against tsunami. One is development of communities resilient to earthquakes and tsunami by multi-layer protection and construction of facilities. Governmental and welfare facilities will be constructed in place with low flooding risk. Organic coordination between local disaster management plans for municipalities and city planning. Another is rising disaster awareness about tsunami, improving hazard map, and evacuation of food, education, and implementation of disaster education and implementation of community disaster management capabilities. Concerning education and planning, it is not easy to keep awareness of disaster. Once people moved to higher place after tsunami 1933. After several years, people returned to flat area. Then many development of many projects changes high risk area to park, recreational facilities, and residential area like this. On the other hand, in all the time, people constructed many stone monuments for next generation, nationwidely. It is famous, maybe you know, it is famous that tsunami stopped 50 meters lower than this stone monument. What we do in this monument is do not build houses under this stone. This is the latest plan of Rikuzen-Takata city. This time, we have to consider how to keep such land using from low level go to higher land. So this time, we have to consider how to keep such land use long time. This is the last slide on future directions. With regard to damage scenarios, review of damage scenario methods and factors considered based on the Great East Japan earthquake. And next is develop several scenarios, including a worst case scenario that assumes this maximum damage to reduce damage caused by shaking. So to reduce damage caused by shaking, systematic efforts to make buildings resilient to earthquake and strengthening of awareness raising activities, and countermeasures against long period ground motion and liquefaction are important. So government has finished to calculate worst case scenario of shaking like tsunami. This is presented in 2003 for disaster loss reduction planning. And now, as a worst case, this map is presented in June this month, 2013, as a maximum level. As you can easily understand, wide area and very wide area with strong motion increased very much. We have to consider not only this one, but also this one still. But the countermeasure, consideration of countermeasure is different. Maybe we design hardware considering this one, but we have to consider countermeasure with such hardware and a combination of such another software method. And this is the evaluation of losses by max class earthquake. This is that was what was the unit? Oh, 1,000. Yeah, seven times or 20 times, very big. And the building completely destroyed or burnt like this. Loss in damaged area beyond US dollar like this. This is a worst case estimation. But we would like to make effort to prevent such matter. If tsunami attacked now like this, but we believe we can improve these numbers of damage by countermeasures we will conducting now. And I'd like to skip this slide. So next topic is quite short. This is a case of emerit. I have already introduced some activities of emerit already in previous topics. So very short summary. These are pictures I took recently. National highway will be rounded up until this height. And the levels of levies of river and coast are under recovery with grade up. And I saw many works mounting up in Rikuzen-Takata city. And emerit equips many signboards, such signboards, along national highway. It tells that past tsunami in aviation section start from here. So if earthquake happens, do not enter beyond this sign. And there are many other activities by emerit. Making and publishing hazard map, destination tsunami evacuation building, construction evacuation route, conducting evacuation drill, seismic retrofitting of bridges. This is the second stage. As I told you, first stage we have already finished to prevent bridge falling down, even based on shaking. So second stage considers a quick recovery by strong shaking. Improvement of BCP plan and enforcing cooperation with other organizations for the crisis management, etc. We have many things to consider and to conduct. And so this is the last topic. The last topic is the introduction of researches I'm concerning in NIRM. I would like to introduce risk and crisis management strategy for excessive and multiple action of natural disaster and other researches for disaster management. Content is this here is some research and development activities. We are not researching. We are also consulting Emirate Regional Bureau to make disaster management plan right now. The first is research on risk and crisis management strategy for excessive and multiple action of natural disaster. Point of view is that considering reverting damage of the 3.11 earthquake, we have to change manner, as I explained, of consideration about disaster. And this is, as I explained already, government of Japan has a basic policy that is to consider scientifically possible maximum scale to make resilient and disaster resistant society, put every possible effort based on mitigation or evacuation concept rather than prevention. I'd like to develop tools to discuss all-out mobilized countermeasures against excessive and multiple action of natural hazard. Multiple means not after earthquakes, sometimes flood happens. After volcano eruption, flood happens. So excessive force and multiple hazard is target of our research. And research has just begun last year, and the research consists of the analysis of past damage experienced by extensive and complex disasters, and the development of scenario-based evaluation methods of disaster occurrence and progress, and the improvement of emergency management technology and the provision of disaster prevention mitigation infrastructures. So what we must do, prepare next event. We would like to provide a good tool to discuss that. And we research so excessive disasters, historical disasters. It is just an example of such disasters. And by studying past events will illustrated as event trees of excessive disasters like this. We have already prepared such event trees regarding giant tsunami and earthquake and eruption and flood.
So those are event trees for multiple hazards, like cascading rescue.
At this moment, not yet cascading.
Okay.
Yeah, cascading we like to do later, next year maybe. And so considering, we have to consider interdependency of each infrastructure. So if road stopped, recover of gas, electricity will be affected like this. And it's correlationship between such structures. Anyway, considering such matters, we would like to we would like to find proper ways to stop spread of influence events. Also, we would like to evaluate risk and the influence of disaster of such countermeasures and such countermeasures, effect of countermeasures. I would like to make possible to evaluate. This is characteristics of countermeasures, but this is just image. Many countermeasures, and so what is at the stage of planning, and what is effective right after event. And the output and application of the study output will be toolkit to assist scenario making of disaster caused by excessive and multiple actions, and guideline to develop a countermeasure on disaster mitigation. Our center is responsible to publish such guideline of disaster management with regard to highway. So output will be such a guideline. And application of such a tool is systematic discussion of measures, disaster management planning, and curriculum for training. And this is other ongoing research for disaster management. One is the division of seismic force for design and tsunami force evaluation. Research and development to improve traditional post-earthquake inspection. We already devising seismic force act on structures. And this time also, we have to change design code of earthquake force. As written like that spectrum.
Excuse me?
Yeah?
That's for the building code?
No, this is for highway bridge.
Okay.
And the evaluation of tsunami force act on bridge is another new topic. This time, many bridges were washed away by tsunami. So we conduct numerical evaluation about washed away bridge. And this is a summary of comparison. Sorry, there are some Japanese. This is a comparison between resident force and acted force. Less than 1.0 is attack force is less than their resident force. So according to numerical analysis, less than one bridges are not washed away, but over than 1.0 washed away. So we think we can possibly to evaluate the bridges are safe or not against tsunami, present bridges are safe or not by tsunami, and also we will be able to reflect this these discussion to new design code, how to prevent washed away by tsunami. We can set tsunami force in design code. And this is earthquake tsunami disaster scenario map. I made not me. Nilm made two years ago, or 3 years ago. We have to devise, but with a hazard map, we put the information the bridge is safe or not. By that, we can plan action plan just after a huge tsunami attack to the town. Nilm also studying design force and the method of building against tsunami. This is not concerning my study. This is provided by my colleague, Mr. Okuda. So this is design flow of buildings. So there are many steps of design. And we have to consider tsunami, horizontal load, and also buoyancy, and collapse, overturning, and the design for structural element, impact, and squaring. So we like to calculate tsunami pressure from building, and also design exterior elements. So tsunami load should be smaller than ultimate capacity of columns and walls. So this is designed for debris impact. Preventing failure of walls and columns by debris impact is not easy, however. This is, so we have to consider design for scoring also. This is actually damaged by scoring. And design for collapse prevention. Story shear force is smaller than story shear capacity. And design for overturning prevention. Actual force of piles smaller than actual capacity of piles. And the design for sliding prevention is also issue. So just study has begun, so we do not have a conclusion about this study yet, maybe. And also, in the area tsunami attacks, we have to design tsunami evacuation buildings. So this building should be strong. Design tsunami force is capable of over seismic force in case, in addition, this is larger than 10 meter. A larger lateral capacity of building requires thick wall, much steel, larger, longer piers. And the last one is research and development to improve traditional post-earthquake inspection. Information on passable routes is the most important for emergency. Every organization would like to know what route is possible for rescue activity. So we have to begin clear emergency route as soon as possible. Have to clear emergency route as soon as possible and share information. However, visual inspection we are doing takes very long time, especially when damage is very, very serious. So MRIT is developing a tool to evaluate and grasp damage of highway by using all useful media in one platform. That is immediate damage prediction system, remote patrol system for highways, damage and analysis by bridge equipped to sensors, visual inspection support system. This is a support system for post-earthquake damage road inspection patrol. Road damage stages and inspection progress are shared. Inspection patroller transmits damage information with mobile phones. And every people knows how the progress of the patrol and whether damage is find out or no damage. Actually, this system we are using already utilizing this system, and so it's quite helpful. And remote patrol system for highways, road damage states can be visually assessed remotely with closed circuit to television, CCTV. So some regional bureau using this system already. And this is seismic intensity estimation system. From considering ground condition, we will calculate and give information about such distribution of strength of seismic intensity. And also, using database of structures, we can evaluate damage of the bridge and liquefaction, considering the seismic intensity. So now, I would like to conclude my presentation. So introduced today are damage and response of GOJ to the 3.11 Great East Japan earthquake disaster. Research is upon the lessons and learned by the disaster are ongoing in Nirim. Some topics are shortly introduced. I hope shortly. To mitigate disaster damage, there are many knowledge and measures to be shared between Canada and Japan, I believe. So even though kind and size of each disaster, combination of society and land are different, I think there are many knowledge and measures to be shared between Canada and Japan. So it is meaningful to exchange information and opinion mutually between Canada and Japan. It is a great pleasure if you can find something interesting or useful information in my presentation. I believe that in Canada, reasonable and practical method of risk management is more advanced than Japan. I'm also happy if I can learn from you such knowledge on disaster management in Canada. And again, I'd like to express my appreciation to Dr. Kovacs, Executive Director of ICLR, Mr. Greg Olahen, and other people of ICLR, and Professor Horihangan, UWO, and everyone today coming here out of your busy schedule. And to finish my presentation, I'd like to extend my appreciation to my great teacher, the late Professor Davenport. I have learned many things from him, and without his presence, I have no chance to visit ICLR today. So thank you for your attention.
We have time for questions. We're not rushing here. Can I start with a strong thank you? There was a lot of time and effort that you put into putting that presentation together. Very carefully considered presentation. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
One piece I picked up out of many very strong pieces there, you had an image of this sword of Damocles. You looked at a period of about 25 years. And there were 7 different events you identified in that period of time. A couple you identified as 1 in 1,000-year events coming right after each other. Most of us, when we think about this, see these as one event. And you were just sharing with us that must have been such an enormous challenge to the country where you would get hit and then get hit again by a remarkably big event and again, all in a short period of time.
Yeah.
Again, it's just some of the history about how complex the events are.
Yeah. So that's our very serious problem. So we have to consider any time that will be attacked, but until that we have to make every effort, and the effect of effort should be in short time. Otherwise, every effort preparing is no use anymore.
Some of us here were at an event this week, and there was a presentation by the City of Toronto talking about the North York rainfall in 2005. Part of that presentation, I think they had 8 1-in-100-year Toronto storms in 12 years or whatever it's supposed to be. It was the same idea that these things that are supposed to be relatively rare but difficult are happening fairly often and one after another. And how do you take on the next one when you haven't even recovered from the one before?
So what's the explanation? Are these not independent events?
So we have a room full of people who are experts in insurance. I'm wondering that the communication about risk is happening very poorly. For someone to say the likelihood of an event occurring is 1 in 1,000, the group here were a mix of different events. Some were earthquakes and some were volcanoes, which I don't know. I don't know about the interaction between them, right? But how do you communicate risks that are independent or are not related risks? So that certainly we're learning today and talking today about the great earthquake in Japan. The earthquake in New Zealand has been followed by many, many different events over a couple of years now. And so to think about them as something that occurs only once is, for an earthquake, not correct. That the reality is you have a big movement, but you have others that are sometimes fairly big movements as well. anyway, to try to think about these things, I think it's a different way that the experts need to communicate to others who are acting on it. Because the message 1 in 1,000 makes it sound like you're not going to worry about this again for a while, and that's not true.
Actually, if I could just add to that a little bit, your question about the frequency. When you've got a 1 in 100-year event or 1 in 1,000-year event, usually that's defined in terms of that specific asset or that property, right? So, and with that in mind, if you were an insurer and say you have 100 distinct properties in your portfolio that you were insuring, you could conceivably be paying out on a 100-year flood every single year, but each one of those properties is only being hit once every 100 years. But as an insurance company, you're paying out that 100-year loss every single year because of your spread of risk and your portfolio setup.
Unfortunately, a lot of the risk management models, and I think even specifically the new ISO risk management model, don't handle those high severity, low frequency risks very well. So they don't look quite often at cumulative risks. So if you say have 10, 20, 1 in 100-year events, the chances of you starting to be hit by one of those start to go really, really up. But the model doesn't take into account that you have to take all of those risks and find some way to put them together. It just basically, as you say, it's, well, there's a 1 in 100-year event, I don't have to worry about that. Or a 1 in 1,000-year event, I don't have to worry about that. Well, as you say, if you've got a whole bunch of things and each one of them has a 1 in 1,000-year event or a couple of them, the chances start to go very far up, and I agree they're not handled well.
Another part of your presentation that you drove home very, very powerfully, the response that occurred. There were many people doing many appropriate and correct things to help reduce the loss of life and reduce the damage that occurred. All looking very well organized and well prepared. I think there's a number of indications in Canada and especially in other parts of the world. The capability of other countries to respond so effectively is not as good, and the circumstance in Japan would have been even worse if there hadn't been such an effective response that took place. The mitigation didn't achieve, in particular the tsunami mitigation didn't achieve everything it was trying to do, but the response was a really powerful, strong one.
On that point, you showed, and it looks very organized, that you did the north-south routes first, then the route.
Oh yeah, Operation Com.
Yeah, was that pre-planned, or was that a decision made at the time?
That is not planned.
Not planned.
Decision make. There's a story. Director of East Tohoku Bureau to the director, minister says, everything you can do, everything you consider can do, you think you are myself. By that, the director is very much encouraged, and he made any difficult decision very quickly. And so the operation came from his decision and the discussion in the bureau, and also Emirates cannot provide many relief supply, many kind of relief of supply, but he buy anything for municipal cities. This is episode. One time, director asked the mayor. Mayor first said, at this moment we have nothing to ask Ministry Emirates, but we need coffin. Many people killed, but we don't not have coffin. Usually we cannot buy coffin, but the director bought plenty of coffin and send it to the city. So everything this time, of course, they prepare. Every year they conduct a drill, training, but many things done under decision of top. So it's quite important matter, I think.
When the tsunami happened, for the big 9 magnitude earthquake, you said you made a pretty interesting point that one of the big failures of that whole warning and evacuation was that the initial warning that came out said the tsunami was going to be 0.2 meters. How were they off so much? Was that not the run-up height, but just the wave over the water, or did someone make a wrong calculation?
No. Okay. This is without changing information, they send. Okay. No. My answer, I would like to begin from first. This is actually measured value, not calculation. 0.2 is, and 3 meter is calculation, evaluation. At the first stage, the magnitude was underestimated, so tsunami height was evaluated very low, 3 meter. After they know the magnitude is 9.0, tsunami height is evaluated more than 2 meter. So with regard to tsunami height, this is evaluation. However, with regard to 0.2 meter, that is observed of sea level.
So that number came out before they'd established that it was a 9.0, in fact.
9.0. 9.0.
Like the magnitude. The magnitude had not been established when that first tsunami prediction came out.
Sorry, Mark, if I can share a little. I heard a presentation recently by Gary Rogers, who works for the Government of Canada and is one of the top seismologists for Western Canada. And when you look at the strength of the shaking, it's not quite a circle pattern, but it's got some of that the strength is in one spot, but it moves out and in a circular pattern. But for a tsunami, it's quite different. And a tsunami, especially with a subduction type event, has happened and could happen in Canada. So in one direction, it can be very, very strong. It actually goes the opposite way. And on the ends, there's nothing at all. It's not a circular pattern. It's a line. And so it can be hard to evaluate where you are in that process. So if you're on the wrong side, it's really bad. 20 meters or whatever, 40 meters, huge amounts of water. But if you were in the other direction, the same event did not send water in all directions. It went straight toward certain people and not others. So it's tough in a matter of minutes to figure that out.
So was it clear initially that it was a subduction event, or that was not clear?
Yeah, of course, we are considered subduction event, but it was underestimation. We learned a historical tsunami recently happened because at the Miyagi area, every 30 or 40 years, that subduction earthquake happened. So, and we evaluate tsunami height from that data, but we didn't consider, we didn't go back to 1,000 years ago. The data is not enough for countermeasures. So this is most serious problem. It was most disappointed assumption.
It's a good warning for everybody.
Mark,
Yeah, no problem. You were saying that you're looking to enhance your business continuity plans or your business continuity processes. I was just wondering what went wrong. What was there that you want to enhance?
Actually, so we have already prepared business continuity plan in each bureau, but the BCP depends on too much assumption, and as I explained, assumption is too small. So BCP upon wrong assumption will not work if such very extreme event happens.
If the assumptions are wrong, the plan will not handle.
We have to consider and we have to consider in BCP plan for not just average assumption, but also such extreme assumption. Many things we have to change maybe.
I had a question. In Toronto, in 2005, we had a very heavy rain, and it brought flooding. And the area where the rain was the heaviest and the flooding was the heaviest was in a part of Toronto which was relatively new, a younger part of the city. The rain was so much. And it was a part of the city that actually had new infrastructure and a fairly good system, but it still ended up with a problem. And the response in Toronto since that time has been to go to that area and to improve that area, make it even stronger. But it was actually one of the strongest parts of Toronto, most resilient, some of the best infrastructure, and now we're taking that part and making it better. But I'm not certain that we did a good job learning to fix the other parts of Toronto that are more vulnerable. In Japan, it's now just a little more than 1 year since the tsunami, and we had devastation in this one part of Japan. Are some of the lessons to improve this part of Japan, or are the lessons being applied for tsunami risk in all parts of Japan?
Sorry, actually, I couldn't understand the last part of your question.
Some of the lessons learned about how to better manage the risk of tsunami in Japan, is that being applied in the area that experienced trouble, or is it being applied in the area that was damaged, and also all the rest of Japan?
All the rest of Japan, actually. And with regard, so now in Nankai trough area, such a high tsunami is also assumed. So we are now changing manner of design of levee, as I explained. It's not only that place, but also nationwide. And also consideration of town planning. Also, law has changed. It's not law only for the Tohoku area. It's also nationwide. So in the area, tsunami attacks, maybe we have to prepare evacuation route, and we have to prepare evacuation buildings in such an area. So we will change many things nationwidely.
Now, now that's a major decision. That will take time. That will take many, many years to do, and a lot of money.
Yeah, that's right. And with regard to Operation the road clearing, now, at that time, as she asked me, that was not prepared. But now, that area influenced by Nankai trough is preparing such operation action plan. So we are sharing everything, and the improvement is nationwide.
I've always been very impressed by Japan's seismic code, building code, and I was very interested to learn about the new research you've been doing on how to make buildings more tsunami-resilient.
Yeah.
I guess I was just wondering if these research mostly apply to bigger buildings, and what has been done, what can you do for a smaller building like houses? Like, do you rely more on public infrastructures, or is there something directly in the building?
Actually, we have a law of building, and at this moment, how to reflect this lesson learned to building is not yet clear. But anyway, and the building is private. People cannot spend too much money considering tsunami attack. So and maybe it depends on where is the location of building, inside of red zone or orange zone or yellow zone. Maybe requirement will be changed, especially escaping building. That building should be quite strong against tsunami. So it's not uniformly applied. Not all buildings. Many level of force will be considered to build buildings. Can you understand what I'm telling? But at this moment, how to reflect to design code is not yet clear. Present situation. If you would like to detail the information, I can ask my colleague working for building code.
Great.
Japan is vulnerable to earthquake. It's vulnerable to flood and tsunami. It's vulnerable to typhoon. Are there ever times where the best practice to deal with earthquake is in conflict with the best practice for another peril, like a typhoon? Or is it always straightforward that you can improve resilience against all perils?
Yeah, actually, if I understand your question correctly, every disaster is all around in Japan. If I select one place, that place is not safe against earthquake, because earthquake is nationwidely dangerous in high risk in Japan, and flood also everywhere. Flood will happen. So we are preparing to every disasters. This is not a trade-off relation. We are considering every hazard, actually. Is it answering your question?
So I accept that you prepare for all. Are there ever times where the best to prepare for earthquake is in conflict or disagrees with the best to prepare for flood or for typhoon?
Maybe we'd like to. We are always considering both, and conflict is not so serious, or maybe we are overcoming such a conflict.
We've got time for a couple more questions. It feels like we're moving toward a close.
Yeah, I have a question about you had a slide earlier that was showing evacuations out of, or not evacuations, but movement of development out of areas that were affected by tsunamis in the 1930s, and then you showed that development moving back in. So was that voluntary by the public, or was that mandated by the government? And I guess going forward, will there be more like strong regulations for development in tsunami-prone areas?
So, unfortunately, are you talking about this one?
Yeah.
Actually, there is no law.
No.
And right after tsunami, every people consider we have to leave higher place. And also, town has such a development plan, but it's not under law. And after several years, people forget, and always looking for convenience and economically benefit. So there are many locations. I don't want to. This is actually a hazard map of Kochi City. Kochi City is in Shikoku Island, Japan. And coastal area is tsunami, high risk of tsunami area, but now plenty of buildings, actually. And so without such regulation, people forget and consider economical development.
Right.
So many development activities, and the people living here doesn't don't worry about such thing. After such a disaster, people noticed how dangerous this place is. Now in Kochi City also, such evacuation buildings and evacuation plan is quite seriously discussed, under discussion.
Okay.
So, one more, about the redevelopment, I mean, there was one slide there where you said, because of the land movement as a result of the earthquake, both horizontally and vertically, there was, after the fact, 16 square kilometers of land, which was now below sea level, whereas prior to the earthquake, it was only 3 square kilometers. So there's an additional 13 square kilometers of land, which was above sea level, which is now below sea level. Presumably, people were living in that space. Now, what happens to those people, or do you allow them to redevelop the same land even though it's now below sea level?
So I already explained. So there is already new law, and that place is now there's no building anymore. So we have to reconstruct the town, and the reconstruct of town is under new law. Will be done under new law, and there are many regulations under new law. So and also maybe there will be some facilities. It is allowed to build new facilities, but that should be high-rising and not private houses. So there are regulations. And levy also, we have to reconstruct the levy at that site considering the height of land. So not to return to the town before the earthquake. New town under new law, new consideration, new countermeasure.
But presumably there's also vast areas of land that were 10 meters above sea level prior to the event that are now only 5 meters above sea level.
So in such case, to design levy, we have to consider that.
That answered my question, actually. It was pretty much the same one.
Japan is quite a narrow country, and especially mountainous country. So plain flat area is quite important for our economic activity. So we have to make the best of such land, but we have to consider tsunami more seriously than before.
I was following a landslide that happened in BC recently. Same thing after the ground comes property, and can you go back there and all that?
You own the house if it's on your neighbor's property.
So it's not just that the oceans come in. We had landslides all over Japan and all kinds of stuff going on. So
that's now air rights.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we're drawing things to a close here. I don't see questions at this point in time. Glenn, Dan, you know, the September Friday Forum is coming.
No, not a thing. Well, we're, instead of having Friday Forum, we're having the Basement Flood
Symposium is happening in September. So, thank you. We usually take a break in the summer, so we don't have a Friday Forum next month. So stay tuned and we'll give you the latest, but a reminder that on September 19th, we've got a full-day symposium where we'll talk about basement flooding and have a number of municipal guests in industry people come together at the Board of Trade. September 19, keep that one in mind. And I'm going to turn it back to Greg to offer a final thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kusakabe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for attending here in person and online on the webinar if you're still with us. It was a great couple days that you've spent here with us, and very much appreciate you making the trip to Canada.
Thank you very much.